So I just realized as I was recording this that we didn't review Ant-Man and the Wasp before this. But you know what? It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not that important, really. It's really not that important. We've done and reviewed movies out of order. We can do it again. Hey there guys, welcome back to another awesome video, and today's movie review is going to be of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This is the third Ant-Man movie in the Ant-Man franchise. This time they find out a way to communicate through the quantum realm. They wind up getting themselves sucked into the quantum realm, and they then get into things with Kang. So this movie is directed by Peyton Reed. He's done, I think, all three of these movies, although I still think the first film kind of has a bit of hint of Edgar Wright in there, and then the sequels were Peyton Reed's ideas and more of him directing. Either way, this is still like his franchise. This is still like connected to him. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. I will do a whole spoiler talk probably after this video or so, give or take. But I'm going to at least say this, that Quantumania is not as bad as everyone says it is. I know this is getting a lot of dumpster fire and a lot of dumpster hate, and honestly, I see it, but I don't see it. But let's talk about why I see it and why I don't see it vaguely, because like I said, there's the stuff I don't like is very much like spoilery. So I'm gonna try and dance around it, but let's kind of look at the good. Let's get into the stuff that I can actually talk about. Because we have Scott Lang, we have Paul Rudd. I think he's probably the one that shines out of everybody, because he's just carrying the movie. This is Ant-Man more than Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is more about him than the duo of Scott Lang and Hope. Although, unless you want to technically say that Janet, Michelle Pfeiffer's character, is the Wasp, in this title, because there's a lot more of her than there is of her daughter. But still, this is more of Ant-Man, there's more of Paul Rudd, there's more of Scott Lang, and I like that. I like that he's carrying this, and there's a lot of more of that, father-daughter situations he has, because he hasn't been around to, spend time with Cassie, and since the snap. I refuse to call it the blip, because the blip is weird. The snap, the whole thing with Infinity War and Endgame. I still kind of, in a way, can't believe how, at first when I heard that Ant-Man 3 was gonna have Kang, I was very, on the fence about it, but, the more I thought about it, it made more sense because of the time travel, because of the quantum realm and everything else that made sense in this film. And speaking of Kang, let's talk about our big baddie, Jonathan Majors. With everything aside that's going on with him, whether by the time this video is recorded and this review is recorded, he'll hopefully be innocent. Justice for Jonathan. But for now, let's just not get into that, whether he's innocent or not by the time this video is recorded. But with everything aside, with what's going on with him, Jonathan Majors is fantastic as Kang in this movie. I loved him as Kang. I think he's the best thing about this film. And I think that's what's carrying this movie, and that's probably what's gonna make this movie for me. And this might make the movie for a lot of you guys. If you guys don't like the film, you'll at least love him as Kang, because he has such a presence. It reminded me so much of Darth Vader in the original trilogy, or at least in A New Hope. That moment of that presence he brings in his first scene, with the mannerisms, the way he's just subtle at being sinister, and yet he gets aggressive. Definitely takes me back to Vader, which that's good. I like that. I like that that's kind of the approach, almost the energy that Kang kind of brings, this very gravitas presence, the mannerisms that Kang does. It's just, Jonathan Majors nailed this to a T, and I cannot stress that enough. And honestly, everyone else in this film is fine, really. No one really else stands out, quite honestly. It's kind of weird. Bill Murray's in a scene. He looks like he's enjoying it and having a good time, so that's great for him. Visually, the quantum realm looks really great at times. There's some shots that look better than others, and some that look very kind of mediocre, but the idea of the quantum realm and the ideas it kind of brought to it was kind of intriguing. This kind of other Earth underneath our Earth kind of universe. Just the stuff they do is very creative, and I like it. Now, I think this is gonna be I don't know if this is gonna be a huge thing that people will hate, but let's I think we can definitely talk about, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I think we could talk about MODOK. MODOK is in the trailers, he's in everything you see, so it's not like I'm giving away that MODOK is in the movie. I think we've seen him, and honestly, like, he is so cheesy that I love him. I know some of the things he says and some of the things he does is actually genuinely stupid, but I think that makes me love him more, just how ridiculous he is. And just, I don't know, just something about him being, like, the way he's over the top at times. It's just, he's on a whole different level. The actor who plays MODOK, who also may be a familiar face, but other than that, I don't know. I had a great time watching him, though. As for everything else, like I said, everything else is fine, really. And then there are some other stuff that I can't get further into, but let's just say there are certain situations that happen in this film that make sense but don't make sense to me, so it doesn't feel fully justified. I don't know what's gonna happen going forward. We have an idea what's going forward, but yet at the same time there's a certain particular thing that does happen that I kind of felt is a little underwhelming. It's impressive, but it's a little underwhelming, so it doesn't feel justified to me. And some of the writing kind of wasn't really needed. It felt kind of repetitive. I don't know, like, I was trying not to overthink a lot of this stuff, but yet there were some moments that kind of made me go, okay, that kind of didn't need to be repeated, or there wasn't really necessarily a line that needed to be in this scene, because there were some scenes that were very much, they could have used a lot more show don't tell, let's just say. There's a specific scene with Janet explaining that she's got basically like a past and why she didn't want to go back to the quantum realm. And I think Michelle Pfeiffer does do a great job. She just does good at it. There's a scene she's talking about something that happened in the past that somehow she kind of knows Kang a little bit, or knew Kang at least at one point. And they're showing the flashback, and then it cuts back to her explaining what we just saw, when you could have easily had cut that down. Like, if you took out that line of dialogue that happened after the flashback, that would have been fine. It felt very kind of little slightly repetitive, and just some other little small little snippets here and there that kind of could have been trimmed, or kind of would have been could cut down a bit, and all this other stuff. And I'm not saying the runtime's terrible. The runtime's actually not that bad. I'm just saying some little, like, parts, maybe not necessarily parts, but like I said, in the writing, in the dialogue, in the monologues, could have maybe been cut down like a trim or two, and I think it would have been it wouldn't have been as repetitive. Also with Janet, if I remember correctly, I might have to rewatch Ant-Man and the Wasp again, but if I remember correctly, she had like weird psychic telekinetic powers or something that she developed while being in the quantum realm, and she barely uses her powers. I thought they were going to be idolized a little bit more, because it's like, you have these powers and then you go back to the quantum realm, you think that maybe you use them, or you explain that you have these powers because of the quantum realm. So, like, she does use them. She opens doors or does other things with it, but whenever they're fighting, like the action sequences, she's just shooting guns. I thought she would maybe use her powers more. Overall, this is a really tough and mixed way to kick off your new phase and start phase 5. A fantastic introduction and debut for Kang the Conqueror, but at the same time, this film seems like this was trying to be not necessarily two different films, but there's some scenes that feel very much like this was meant to be a different type of film tone-wise, and it kind of does show a little bit in certain areas. But I think overall, I am going to give Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, I am going to give it a C+. I think it at least deserves a C+. I might give it maybe a few more viewings and maybe see if my opinion changes or not, but I'm really kind of like, I like it, but I don't like it, and it's really hard to touch on it, and it does feel like, again, this was meant to be a different type of film, and I feel like this could have been a lot darker. I feel like they could have done the opposite of what Thor was doing, where the first two Thor films were kind of more serious, and then Thor Ragnarok makes it a little bit like fun. Like, it still keeps that serious tone, but it adds a lot of levity to it. Not talking about Thor Love and Thunder. I thought the Ant-Man franchise would have done the opposite, which is the two first films were a lot of comedy, and then the third film here would have been like a bit of comedy still, but a lot darker. But Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, have you guys seen it? What did you think of it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please smash that button. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I do awesome videos every day, every week. Make sure you ring that bell to new videos every day, every week. Share the video with your family and friends, all the good stuff and more. Leave some suggestions in the comments. You name it, I'll look to as best as possible. Depending on when this gets uploaded, not sure when just yet, but maybe depending on when, we'll have a lot more other stuff coming to you guys. So just stay tuned. I'm assuming if this comes out in April, there's gonna be a lot of stuff that's gonna be uploading in April. So do stay tuned for stuff in April. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.